I think you got to hate his advice. He's a former governor of Florida, so I mean that's probably better advice than anybody. But it's good to be here. It's good to be in Brevard County. I grew up about 3 hours south of here in Brevard, but I grew up spending a lot of my summers here because my aunt had a home in Melbourne Beach, and so it's good to be back here. I'm going to jump right in because we don't really have a lot of time. And I don't mean today we have all the time in the world. I'm happy to stay here. I will literally answer every single question, take a photo with every single one of you if that's what you want. But when I say we don't have a lot of time, I mean we're running out of time, quite literally, to save this country. I'm just going to be honest with you. We're coming up on 250 years since our brave founding fathers set this country into motion. I want to be very clear. They were brave. They were courageous. Yes, they made some mistakes. But I'm never going to apologize for what our founding fathers and ancestors did. Never going to do it. Just can't do that. We can't have this warped view of history that takes people at their worst or their most vulnerable mistakes and makes that their entire personality. You just cannot have that. And so the way I'd sum up where we are today is it is really hard to be an American in America. Period. I think, if you went to the doctor's office and you said, can you diagnose America at 250? Can you diagnose the country at 250? I would say it's really hard for an American citizen to live in America today. I don't think it's very difficult to be an illegal alien, especially after the Biden years. In Chicago, they got $7,000 a month. In New York, $500 a night hotel rooms, food stamps, while single moms and homeless vets struggled here in Florida. It's not hard to be someone who is a migrant in Florida. It's not even hard to be one of these foreign immigration visas, these H-1Bs that come over from other countries. And perhaps they're good people. No one's saying they're not good people. But what we're saying is, when you graduate from FIT, when you graduate from UCF, when you graduate from FSU, you should be able to get a job without having to compete with 50 Indians to get the job. Radical concept. American jobs should go to Americans. Not controversial to say it. Actually, not even a Republican or a Democrat thing. Not even a left versus right thing. It's one of those right versus wrong things. It is wrong to give jobs to foreigners when there are perfectly qualified people right in our own backyard who could do those jobs. Period. Full stop. End of story. Shouldn't be controversial. Shouldn't be political. And yet, I actually get a lot of pushback from folks in the Republican Party saying, well, we need a global labor market. We need to compete with China, compete with India. And the obvious pushback to that is, well, of course, we need the most qualified people for the job. And the most qualified people for the job, almost every single time, will be American citizens, full stop. So why do we have a system? Speaking of a system, the sound system, it's kind of weird to hear your own voice that close. Why do we have a system that gives preference to other people? Because look, a job is not just the direct deposit that hits the bank account biweekly. A job is not just a nice to have, it's a need to have. A job is discipline. A job is purpose. A job is dignity. For men, a job is our Christian calling. That income is what we use to put down that down payment on a home. That income is what we use that after we've put down that down payment, we marry a God-fearing woman, we move into woman, singular. Sorry, I've been on Tinder for 24 hours. Now let me be very honest. I want to be very clear with you. I did not join Careful of the Freudian slips. I did not join Tinder a single man. 24 hours later, I am a single man because I joined Tinder. Someone was not very happy. My better half was not very happy. I said, look, you have to meet young women where they are. Okay? It's very simple. We will win on August 18th. Put Florida first. Vote fishback, swipe right. It's that simple. It shouldn't be controversial to say that. I don't know why they're upset. Politico was in shambles this morning because I joined Tinder. I'm up to 1,000 matches, okay? And I say that with all due respect, no hetero. I'm not on there for anything other than connecting with young women, and I have a plan for young women. Okay, here's my plan. I'm not going to catfish you. I'm not going to gaslight you, because a lot of Republicans play word games. I want to be very clear where I stand on the issue of life. Life begins at conception. Life begins at conception. Abortion is not health care. Abortion is murder. And it's incredible to see so many of these weak Republicans who say abortion is murder, and then suddenly, at a certain time, abortion is perfectly acceptable. Well, Lindsey Graham will say 15 weeks, we need to codify Roe v. Wade. Even Republicans in Tallahassee won't sign an equal protection bill into law, which I want to be very clear. If a bill came across my desk to guarantee equal protection to the preborn, it would be the honor of a lifetime to sign it as your governor. Either abortion is murder or it isn't. Either it is a genocide against Gen Z or it isn't. And all this talk about mass murder, I want to be very clear. Abortion is a Holocaust. And we must end that Holocaust against the preborn in this country and all over the world. We must do it. The truth is that if a mom walks in to Planned Parenthood today, anywhere in Florida, there are 51 abortion clinics, sadly, still standing in the state. And if a mom walks into Planned Parenthood today and says, I would keep the baby if I just had access to diapers and baby food for the first 3 months, they would turn to her and say, no, ma'am, all we offer is murder. If she said, I would keep the baby if I just had some help, some child support for the first couple of weeks to get back on my feet, no, ma'am, all we offer is murder. I would keep the baby if I could have postpartum care. No, ma'am, we sent all your money to Israel and Ukraine. All we offer is murder. The correct number of abortions in Florida in any given year is precisely, mathematically, 0. 0. And look, we can get rid of abortion. We're not going to get rid of unplanned, unexpected pregnancies. That's why, as governor, I will shut down every single abortion clinic in this state. And I will build a crisis pregnancy center right where that stood. If you're a mom and you need diapers, we are here to help. If you're a mom and you need health care, we are here to help. If you need support, if you need baby food, if you need vitamins, we are here to help you. We need to fight for our sisters, our moms, and our neighbors here in Florida. And if you elect me governor, it'd be the honor of a lifetime to do that with you. So that's why I joined Tinder. No, I joined Tinder because I want to be honest with you. Politics is really depressing. I don't care what you watch, CNN or Fox News, politics generally sucks right now. And so when I say meet people where they are, that sounds like Democrat code language for some kind of pizza party. Speaking of pizza party, you want to see the Epstein files? Yeah. So I was outside of the United States courthouse in downtown Orlando yesterday. I stood there for a couple hours because I was waiting for all of the sick individuals identified in the Epstein files to be dragged into court, arraigned, and charged with sex trafficking. To the surprise of no one here, not a single soul was dragged into that courthouse. Because whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, if you're powerful, they will protect you. I will not rest until there is justice for every single one of Jeffrey Epstein's victims here in Florida. I will not rest. I'll use every state resource to investigate every single person who has been credibly accused of being a co-conspirator in Jeffrey Epstein's scheme. The victims deserve justice, and those men will get their day in court. We cannot forget about what he and his sick animals did, principally right here in Florida. They talk about Epstein's Island, but if you look through some of those emails, as many of you might have this past weekend, there was a lot of talk of our state right here. We know he lived just 2.5 hours south of here. And so, no, we cannot forget. And we must hold every single person accountable. So the question then becomes meeting people where they are. It's kind of weird to have to say this, but I joined Tinder for the very simple reason that you need a candidate who's going to show up where you are. Yes, that could be on Fox News. That could be on CNN. That could be at a debate between myself and Congressman Byron Donalds, June 23rd. Look forward to that. But it could also be on your Instagram For You page. Could be in a Facebook group. Could be on something called TikTok. For the longest time in our state, young women aspired to be something more. They aspired to be devoted moms, aspired to be small business owners, pastry chefs, doctors, nurses, teachers like my own sister and my own grandmother and my own aunt who lives 45 minutes down the road here in Melbourne Beach. And yet there's this online platform, maybe you've heard of it, it's called OnlyFans, that sells women a slanderous lie, that they're not capable of the greatness that they have achieved time and again. No, they're only good for selling their bodies on the internet. They're only good for commodifying themselves to sick men in distant places. They're only good to allow people to objectify them. As governor, I will institute a 50% sin tax on every single person on OnlyFans. Every single one of them. We have to have someone who's going to fight for our sisters, for our moms, and our neighbors. And the lie that women cannot be stay-at-home moms, the lie that women cannot be nurses, cannot work at SpaceX right here in the Space Coast. That's a disgusting lie. And the only way to ever convince these people is to cripple them, is to bankrupt them. It would be the honor of a lifetime to send every single one of OnlyFans owners back to where they came from and bankrupt that entire company. It is a disgusting, degenerate platform. It has no place here in Florida. No place. If a 5th grade girl walked into her class today at school and it was career day where students dress up and her classmate to the left of her dressed up like a cop, classmate to the right of her dressed up like an astronaut. But she was dressed a little differently, and the teacher was kind of thrown off. She was wearing an apron. She had her hair in a bun. And the teacher asked, well, do you want to be a pastry chef? Do you want to own a restaurant? And she said, no, I want to be like my mom and her mom. I want to stay at home. I want to raise children. Let's be very honest about what that public school teacher would tell that young girl. No, you could be the president. Why would you settle? Why would you settle for just being a mom? But for the moms all over this state who work hard every single day, who put it on the line for their kids and their husbands, we say that you are doing something extraordinary. As governor, I will eradicate the slanderous lie in our school that is toxic feminism. My grandma was a public school teacher. My aunt's a public school teacher. My sister's a public school teacher. I believe most public school teachers show up every single day and give it their all. I want to be very clear. There is a minority of the Republican Party that has taken joy and pleasure in mocking our public school teachers. I will never allow that to happen. But I want to be very clear. If you are a public school teacher in Florida and you are pushing white guilt on your students, you will not be a public school teacher in Florida if I'm governor. Just that simple. No more telling the white kids to apologize to the black kids, and no more telling the black kids that they're oppressed and they can never make it. We are all created in God's image. All of us are capable of greatness. And we have to revive that in our schools. We have to. But we have to confront the reality as well that public school teachers are not paid what they are worth here in Florida. I was in Central Florida over in Kissimmee a couple weeks ago and I met a public school teacher who quite literally is living between motel rooms and the back of her Toyota Prius. Because Florida is 49th out of 50 in public school teacher pay. Unacceptable. Unacceptable. If you elect me to be the 47th governor of this state, in my first year, I will raise teacher pay for our public school teachers by 25%. We have to do it. But as Columbo said, there's just one more thing, which is there are strings attached. My childhood show was Columbo. It's a really great show, very wholesome. Unlike whatever they're playing on Disney these days. I wouldn't know, I'm banned from Disney anyway, whatever. Apparently you can't talk to voters at Disney Springs. Whatever. And so, yeah, there's going to be conditions on that. Number one, crazy idea, not controversial. I don't know why the media thinks it's controversial. Mom and dad are the most important, influential teachers in a student's life. Parental involvement in our schools is not a nice to have, it is necessary. But I'm going to mandate it. Every teacher in Florida will be required to have a parent-teacher conference twice a year. You got to sit down with the student, with mom and dad, go over what they're doing right and what they can improve on. And I'll tell you, that costs us nothing to do. But when you bring parents back in the classroom, when they get more involved, and I'll tell you, the parents I meet, they want to be involved. They want to be involved. But for whatever reason, the system is not set up for them to have a direct communication with the teachers. You got to go through the guidance counselor. You got to have an email. You got to do this, that, and the other. It ends. Direct communication between our teachers and our students and our parents, twice a year, parent-teacher conference. That's number one for the 25% increase. And by the way, the 25% increase, that's not exactly peanuts. For the average teacher, that's going to be $10,000 to $15,000 a year. That is a good investment to pay our teachers more. They show up every single day. They're paid below average, but they're anything but. They're working hard for our students, showing up early, staying late, digging into their own pockets to pay for school supplies or for the kid who couldn't have lunch money, which was me in most cases. And guess what? They deserve a raise. I don't care if the Republican Party doesn't like it. Public school teachers deserve a raise here in Florida. Can I have my drink from over there? Can you grab it, Nico? They deserve a raise. But why stop at a 25% raise? Why would we stop at that? Let's do what so many of us know to be true. Let's create a performance-based incentive system. When you do a really good job, you should get paid more. I want to be very honest. I have no political experience. I don't. I don't have the experience of going to Congress for 5 years and making millions of dollars trading stocks and insider information. I don't have the experience of looking you and your loved ones in the eye, say I'm going to fight for you, and then send another $300 million to Ukraine to lose a war. I don't have the experience of taking money from AIPAC and putting America last. Careful, careful. In the case of Congressman Donalds, I don't have the experience of going to Congress for 5 years and spending money we don't have on things that we don't need, driving up the national debt by $8 trillion to pay people who should not even be in our country. I want to be very clear with you. I do not have political experience. I wanted to get that out of the way because in the spirit of Tinder, I'm not going to catfish you guys, okay? If you came here for political experience, the door's right there. What I do have is the experience of being a fourth generation Floridian. I have the experience of starting a business. I have the experience of my company, Azoria, putting $40 million of investor capital to work last year into companies all over this country in different sectors that were doing the crazy thing of hiring on skill and merit as opposed to race and gender. I have the experience of starting a statewide debate league for 5,000 students so they could be like the next generation of Charlie Kirks, bold, free-thinking, and well-spoken. I have the experience of being a working-class kid in a state of working-class families and recognizing that what makes Florida special is not the desire to be the AI capital of the world or the financial capital of the world. What makes us special is that when you ask the average Floridian, black or white, rich or poor, Christian, Muslim, or Jew, do you want more development or do you want to conserve or preserve? They choose the second choice every single time, and I will as your governor. We can't pretend to be something that we're not. And so I'm going to bring my business experience to Tallahassee if you'll let me. Teacher pay. Here's how you do it. Raise teacher pay by 25%. That's up to $15,000 across the board. And then you tell our incredible teachers, whether they're here in Brevard or where I grew up in Broward or where I now live in Madison, here's what you tell our teachers. Here's the deal. We're going to raise your pay. And if you, by measured 3 different criteria, test scores, are part of it, but they can't be all of it. Let's be honest. Test scores only tell you part of the story. Which is what I told my parents when I failed my tests. You have to look at a holistic assessment of my performance. Yeah, I got an F, but look at my Call of Duty score. I got kicked off of Xbox Live. Look at how much I'm a trash talker. So is that the bright line? So, business experience is this. You judge our teachers by 3 things. Test scores, parent evaluations, student evaluations. I'm going to be very clear here today. If a teacher gets the highest marks on the test scores, on the parental evaluations, and on the student evaluations, they're going to make $100,000 a year in Florida. It's that simple. I suspect a lot of teachers are going to love that deal. And I suspect a small minority of teachers are going to have a full-blown deranged meltdown in the corner because I'm asking them to show up to work and be judged by their performance. Guess what? If you're a fry cook at McDonald's and you suck at frying fries, you should be fired. Guess what? If you're a bartender and someone asks for a Michelob Ultra and you give them a Diet Coke, you should be fired. If you are a teacher, a small minority of the teachers here in Florida, And the idea of asking you to be judged by how well your students do, how well your students think you're doing, and how well the parents of those students think you're doing, then you can leave and do something more fulfilling, because we are only going to pay teachers who love to teach here in Florida. You know, they say test scores this, they say this, that, and the other. I don't know what any of that means. Let's do this. You can't graduate high school unless you can answer these 3 questions. I don't care if you're the valedictorian. I don't care what you think you got on the SAT. You're not graduating high school unless you answer these 3 questions. We're going to pull you out of class when you least suspect it and answer these questions. Ask these questions. Number 1, pull you out of class. Which way is the Pacific Ocean? Genuinely, seriously, how many students at Satellite High School could correctly answer that question if randomly pulled out of class? Anybody want to take a guess? Is it less than 50%? Is it less than 25%? That's question number 1. That's actually the easiest one. That's probably the easiest one, actually. Question number 2. Recite verbatim, word for word, the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution. And what does it mean for you? And what does that mean? Side quest, real quick. I promise, it's a really quick side quest. The Second Amendment is not a recommendation or a suggestion. The right to self-defense is given to us by God, enshrined by the United States Constitution. Practically speaking, what does that mean? It means if you are old enough to die for your country, you are old enough to buy an AR-15 223 with an FRT the day you want it, no red flag laws, and no waiting periods. We believe in the Second Amendment here in Florida. Shall not be infringed. Shall not be infringed. And by the way, it's not about hunting. It's not about shooting ducks. Speaking of shooting ducks, I'm going to give folks the extra 30 minutes if they want it. It's not about that. It's about self-defense. It's about protecting ourselves from the tyranny of a federal government, should that risk ever come. And perhaps it hasn't yet, because they know we're under the teat here in Florida. And Gavin Newsom should recognize that if, heaven forbid, he ever becomes president. But look, if you're a single mom who works at Waffle House and you got to walk on the wrong side of the train tracks home or to work, why should we make you wait 3 days so you can buy a pistol to defend yourself? If you are someone who's getting out of an abusive relationship and your ex is banging on your door, why should we tell you in the name of a waiting period, you cannot protect yourself? Waiting periods have to go. Red flag laws have to go. And, you know, there's this talk about this seasonal sales tax holiday for firearms and ammunition. I want to tell it to you straight. I do not support a seasonal sales tax holiday for firearms and ammunition. I support a permanent sales tax holiday for firearms and ammunition. Why? Shall not be infringed. Not by some bureaucrat in the county clerk's office trying to push some red flag crap on you, and sure as heck, not by Uncle Sam trying to get their cut. That could be stopping you between owning a firearm and protecting yourself and your family. My Second Amendment position is very simple. Shall not be infringed under any circumstance. Parkland was a tragedy. February 14th, 2018 was an absolute tragedy. What's also a tragedy is taking it out on legal gun owners all over Florida and dispossessing them of their Second Amendment rights. There's a reason why they don't shoot up the banks. There's a reason why they don't shoot up police stations. It's because there are armed guards at banks and police stations. Hire me to be your 47th governor. I'll put 10 armed guards at every single public school in our state. Every single one of them. And I suspect a lot of the people who are going to want to do that aren't even going to want to get paid. They're grandparents. They're like my grandfather proudly served in World War II. They're vets who are coming back from the Middle East. And they want to serve their community in a new way. And so you bring the gun, you sign the paperwork, we'd be honored to have you protect our schools here in Florida. If we're serious, like we are, about protecting our money, then we will also protect our treasured children at every single one of our schools here in Florida. We have to do it. That was a really long tangent. Let's go back to the 3-question quiz, okay? So the first question, what was the first question again? You have to remember the first question or you can't graduate. So maybe that's the test. Is I do that, I go on this rant about the Second Amendment and all the Parkland, and then I come back and I say, well, what was the first question? And then if they don't know that, then they're held back 3 grades. The hippocampus is not working. It's not connecting the short to the long term. So that's the first question. Second question is the Second Amendment. The third question, it will not stump, it will stupefy. You're not graduating from a Florida public high school if I'm governor if you don't answer this question correctly. It's actually quite simple. Someone just bought something for $11.67, gave you a 50, you have 30 seconds to make change. No calculator, no cash register. I'm sorry. It's really awkward to go to Wawa, as I just did, and have a young woman who is brilliant, who is capable of greatness, struggle to make change. They say we're so advanced. That's all I can hear about is the AI, and we're so advanced. The average kid in the 1950s was way ahead of the average high school grad today. And the sooner we recognize that, the sooner we can start winning again. And by the way, it's not the kids' fault. Because I'll tell you, Gen Z is plugged in a way that no generation has. They have a real pulse for the political moment that our country is facing. But I'm not convinced they can write in cursive. They can do the TikTok edits. But we need to get back to the basics. We got to get back to the basics. Yeah, whatever. There's some book in the high school library. Okay. The kids can't read. How about that? Yeah, I don't like the fact that book is in the library, but stop with the bread and circus culture war for just 1 second. I'm sorry. These Republicans, and I say it with all due respect, the majority of the establishment Republicans are a bunch of losers. They're a bunch of losers. I'm just going to say it they're a bunch of losers. You know, we can have a debate about how well President Trump's second term has gone. But the only reason I'm still a Republican today is because of Donald J. Trump. That's the only reason. I'm a reluctant Republican. I don't like the fact that the Republican Party lied to us, gaslit us into Iraq. I don't like the fact that the Republican Party was all for the open border to bring in cheap agricultural labor to work in sugar fields in Clewiston or pick strawberries in Plant City. Not okay. Now, the Democrats want the immigrants for the voters. The Republican establishment country club losers, they wanted it for the cheap labor. The sooner we recognize that, the better. But let's get back to an education system that prioritizes excellence. Here's how you do it. You can't come to school dressed like a gangbanger. You can't come to school dressed like the Migos. If you don't know what the Migos is, good. You don't need to know what the Migos is because you don't want to dress like the Migos. What is with these kids? They've got the jeans sagging above the knees. They've got one AirPod as if the other AirPod never existed. And it's really disgraceful. And I don't even blame them. I blame the school system. And in many respects, some of the parents who have enabled that behavior, because I'll tell you, the kids didn't go and buy all that degenerate clothing themselves. That's why, as Florida governor, I'll mandate a statewide uniform on day one. Men, you're showing up in khakis and a polo and a blazer. Women, it is a pantsuit and is a knee-length dress. Our kids need to respect themselves again. We need standards in our public schools. how do you, I mean, would you guys treat me with respect? Would you guys take me seriously if I was up here with pajamas on? If I was up here, my pants were sagging and I had chains, would you take me seriously? No. So why do we allow students to show up to school dressed like this is a night out? Why? We got too comfortable. And I'll tell you right now, the time for comfort has ended. We have to get comfortable being uncomfortable, including and especially our students. Every person, Republican, Democrat from all over the state, has reached out to me about this proposal and said they like it. Varying degrees, but they say they like it. The only people that don't seem to like it are 16 and 15-year-olds in high school. And to that I say, tough luck, you can't vote. Not my problem. Not my problem. Look, I had this phase in my life in middle school where all I wanted to eat was Lunchables. That's all I wanted to eat. I thought it was the holy grail. My mom was doing rice and beans. She was doing steak. And I said, no, I want Lunchables. I had the little turkey. I had the little, remember the little pizza? You make the little pizza? Remember that? I felt like I was cooking. It felt real. Speaking of cooking, we're bringing back home economics, by the way, and it's mandatory. It's not an elective, it's mandatory. It's a mandatory thing because, so you know how to do calculus, great. Can you cook for yourself? No, they didn't teach us that, ma'am. Okay. Can you make change? No. Can you sign your name in cursive? Can you balance a checkbook? Do you know your constitutional rights? Because I regret to inform you, if you don't know your constitutional rights, they will be stolen from you. They will be dispossessed from you. We have to remind our students what it means to be an American in 2026. We have to do it. And no, being an American is not signing a piece of paper. Being an American, sure as heck, is not identifying as an American. I think some of our friends on the left said, a woman is someone who identifies as a woman. Well, that same circular logic has plagued a large part of the Republican Party. An American is someone who identifies as an American. We rejected that logical fallacy with Matt Walsh back then, and we will do it again today. Our country is not an economic zone. It is not a free trade area. It is not Dubai or Hong Kong or Singapore that you can just come and you can work and you can take jobs and benefits and homes from American citizens here in Florida. That is not going to be allowed. Can you imagine for a moment a young couple in their 20s, got a job, engaged, put down a down payment on a home here in Brevard County, and at the last minute they are told, you were outbid by $700 because Blackstone or BlackRock or a non-citizen took that home from you. All of a sudden, the engagement, the wedding, the children, the future, the trajectory, the family tree, the dirt they were going to buy is now thrown up in the air. Why do we let non-citizen foreigners buy our homes instead of us? Why do we let Blackstone buy our homes instead of our children and grandchildren? And why do we let the H-1B program steal jobs from qualified Floridians in the name of cheap Indian labor? I want to be very clear. This is not about the hatred of any people. This is about an unapologetic love of our people. We are going to stop apologizing for being Americans. We have to. If you hire me to be your 47th governor of Florida, I will ban Blackstone from buying single-family homes in Florida. End of story. Out. And they'll say, what will happen to Black? I don't care what happens to Blackstone first and foremost, but let's do a little trade-off game for those who are curious. So family, 2, they want to buy a single-family home. They want to take that family from 2 to 4. Great God-fearing couple, have been in this state for 20 years. That home is where they're going to make memories. They're going to celebrate Easter, celebrate Christmas, have a July 4th cookout, have a couple dogs on the front porch, have a white picket fence. So you have that, and Blackstone misses on third quarter earnings on the Bloomberg terminal. Which one's more important? Which one's more important? Protecting Blackstone's profit margins or protecting the birthright of Floridians to live, fight, and exist in their own state? Guess what? Politics is not about solutions. I've learned that in the last 9 weeks. Not from politics. I've learned it from business. I've learned to apply it from businesses. There are no solutions in this world. There's not in business. I learned that over 10 years of running an investment firm. There are no solutions in business. There are no solutions in politics. As the great economist Thomas Sowell said, there are no solutions. There are merely trade-offs. What's the trade-off? Do I want to trade off the economic security and dignity of my fellow Floridians, or do I want to protect the profit margins of a company that couldn't care less about each and every one of us existing in our own state? I choose the former, and I'm not going to apologize for it. I'll ban Blackstone. I'll ban non-citizens from owning homes as well. And then I'll end the H-1B scam, because guess what? If there are available jobs in Florida, they go to qualified Floridians, not unqualified foreigners. End of story. I don't know what this obsession is with other parts of the world on behalf of our so-called politicians. I just don't get it. I don't get it. There's a congressman, he was from here, he says he's from here, he's called Randy Fine. Do we know who Randy Fine is? This guy's a bad dude, by the way. So, what is with this obsession with other countries? One country in particular. Not supposed to talk about that. I don't care. You might lose votes talking about this issue. I would rather lose the election than tell a single lie to my fellow Americans. I'm never going to do that. Let me tell you the truth right here, right now. It is America first, not Israel first. Good to see you, brother. I want to invite a friend here. A young boy, teenager, by the name of Muhammad Ibrahim. Right here, from Florida, lives in Brevard County, would spend summers working at his cousin's ice cream parlor over in Tampa. He went to visit family in the West Bank last February. The Israeli military alleged that he threw a rock at an armored vehicle, hurt nobody. They had no evidence to prove it. There was no trial. He was thrown in an Israeli military prison as a 15-year-old teenager, American citizen, denied due process. He lost 27 pounds and contracted scabies. Why do we let other countries treat American citizens like this? It is completely unacceptable. And I want to hand over the mic to Uncle Z to say a few words.
Thank you, guys. So Muhammad is from Palm Bay, born and raised. He went to go visit family overseas during the winter break, and he was taken out of his home blindfolded, zip-tied, hog-tied, thrown in the back of the Jeep, and stomped and beaten for 45 minutes until he got to a military prison. First thing we did was call the U.S. Embassy. Then we called our governor in Tallahassee. When you're overseas, that's your only choice to make. The country that he mentioned wouldn't return calls. For 10 months, his family wasn't allowed to see him or speak to him. Imagine being a parent of a kid right here in Palm Bay. There's a lot of children here, where masked men, 25 soldiers, ski masks, flashlights, M16s, come and take him out of his bed in front of you, point guns at your head, throw him in a Jeep, and you don't hear his voice, see his picture, not even allowed to write him a letter for 10 months. Nobody in Tallahassee reached back out to us. Not a message, not an email, not a phone call. He was talking about he didn't have any experience. And he mentioned that country, and he mentioned Randy Fine and a bunch of good things. I can tell you firsthand, the only person, before he even declared to run for governor, he calls me up and says, I'm going to be in Orlando. It's not far from you. I said, no, it's not. He says, where do you want to meet? I said, wherever. You know, there's no ego, no pride. I'm desperate. We need help. I want to get this kid home alive to his family. I'm his uncle. I'm obligated. He says, no, he's a Floridian. I'm obligated. I go to Orlando. We meet up. And he sends a video of me and him directly to the president, asking him to release the child. November 27th, Muhammad was released and put back on a plane that we paid for to get him back home. He lost a third of his body weight. He has scabies. We're still treating him for the scabies. That's how bad it was. I don't want to talk about mentally because we're trying not to have him relive the 10 months of torture and pain and suffering and starvation. But out of all of our elected officials in Florida, especially in Tallahassee, nobody reached out, nobody called. At the same time Muhammad was there, his boss, his first cousin, 20-year-old from Tampa, went to go visit his family and was beaten to death by Israeli settlers on his own land. While he was getting beaten to death, somebody called an ambulance. The ambulance comes, the IDF blocks the ambulance because he wasn't Israeli. He was an American. They blocked the ambulance for 2 hours and 40 minutes. Safe, a 20-year-old American from Tampa, from Florida, took his last breath 5 minutes before getting put on a stretcher and taken to the ambulance. That's just a couple of drops in a bucket of what we've been hearing the last couple of years about that particular country. But that's 2 Floridians. Nobody called to pay their condolences. Nobody called to say, can we help? During that time, Tallahassee flew back 1,500 Israeli Americans that we all paid for on private flights back to Florida. None of them were children. Muhammad was a child. Saif was only 20 years old. They were flown back on our budget, our tax budgets. These 2 weren't considered Floridian enough or American enough because of their DNA and their religion. He said something a few days ago that stuck in my head, besides reaching out to the president. He said, I'm not here to ask you guys to vote for me. I want you guys to interview me. I want to work for you. I can be a witness and tell you he already done that before becoming governor. His message got to Washington. A few weeks later, Muhammad was home here in Brevard County. And this man deserves all the acknowledgement and a round of applause for that. I'm not a registered voter. Every time I went to decide to go vote, my choices was always the least of the 2 evils. There was never that perfect candidate. And that might register with everybody here. You know, you kind of vote for who you think is going to be better for you. You know, he's mentioning things that we haven't heard. And I'm going to register just to vote for him. And I hope everybody does that. That's something sincere from my heart. I texted him yesterday and said, I'm going to try to make it. I live in Rockledge. And he remembered me and just pointed me out. I didn't have anything prepared. But even if you don't agree with everything, there's enough to see eye to eye on and vote for this man. I appreciate you guys. Thank you. I appreciate you.
It's time we put America first. That's not a Republican thing. That's not a Democrat thing. That's the American thing to do, is to put our people first. And what has Tallahassee done for the last couple of years? Well, as we stand here today, you sit, I stand, as we are here today, I regret to inform you that Tallahassee has sent $385 million of our money to Israel, lending it to Israel. We don't lend money to Sweden. We don't lend money to Australia. We don't lend money to any other country on planet Earth except Israel. And by the way, if we had lent it to Sweden, I like IKEA, but we're bringing that money back too. Let me be very clear. If you hire me to be the next governor of Florida, I will bring back every single penny of the $385 million. It's called divest. It's called divest. Very simple approach. Our money should not be given to foreign governments. Our money should not be given to foreign governments. You pull somebody aside who's voted for President Obama in 2008, who's a card-carrying Democrat, but a proud Christian who stands in the pews and professes her love for our Lord and Savior. Guess what? She's going to agree with that. A retired teacher from Brevard County who has found no home in either party for decades, if you pull them aside and say, you know what? Our money should not be sent to foreign countries, he will agree with that. I'm sorry, the Republican and Democrat Party are pitting us against one another. It's time to put America first. And I'm not bringing back the money for fun. I'm bringing back the money because there is an alarm. There is a siren call across, rather fitting. All right, quick question. Would you rather have that all day or the bright line just going back and forth? This is an interesting question, actually. Just don't cross the tracks. But what I've said is I won't just divest every single penny our stupid Republicans and Democrats foolishly sent to Israel, the $385 million. I'll bring it back literally on day one, and it's an executive authority. I direct the state pension fund to immediately sell the Israeli sovereign bonds on the open market. I was a government bond trader. Heck, I'll do it myself if I have to. Just give me the Bloomberg terminal. I think I know how to still use that thing. Chat, sell the bonds. How about that? Just sell them. I don't care. Sell them. Bring back all the money. I'm not just going to bring back the $385 million. I'm going to start a $385 million statewide down payment assistance program. If you're young and you're married here in Florida, there is a $10,000 check with your name on it to buy your first home. We got all the money in the world for everybody in the world except us. That changes me. That changes if you hire me to be the governor. And, you know, I say hire because, look, this is not an election, guys. Don't view it as an election. The pundits, the polls. By the way, we're in second, 23%, for whatever that's worth. But not bad for 9 weeks. We got 9 months. Holy moly. We're going to be okay. Don't think of it as a vote. Don't think of it as going in there and pushing one button over the other. Genuinely, close your eyes and ask yourself, who would you hire to look out for your family? Who would you hire to make life here in Florida a little easier and a lot more affordable? Myself or Congressman Donalds? With all due respect to him, look, I got jokes. I got memes. I got names for him. AIPAC Shakur. H1 Byron. My personal favorite, Byron Donalds. When he took the money from that Chinese company, we called him Baiwan Donalds. It's not, I play games, and as President Trump rather eloquently said in 2015, we do a little bit of trolling. It's okay. But this is not about the who, this is about the what. What vision for Florida do you want? If you want Florida to be the AI capital of the world, vote for Byron Donalds. Genuinely, I mean that. If you want Florida to be the financial capital of the world, vote for Byron Donalds. If you're okay with Tallahassee lending $385 million of our money to Israel, vote for Byron Donalds. If you want to criminalize criticism of the Israeli government with that stupid anti-Semitism law, State Statute 10105, then vote for Byron Donalds. But if you want someone who's going to wake up every single day and fight for you and your family, someone who's from Florida, who was born and raised here, someone who recognizes that I work for you, he works for AIPAC, recognizes that, you know what? If we do anything right, If we do anything over the next 4 years, and hopefully 4 years after that, it's going to be to keep Florida, Florida. We're not going to pave over the state. We're not going to turn this into a concrete jungle. We're not going to let the developers on the FWC ruin our water, spray our lakes, take over our rivers, turn us into some kind of mega mall in southeastern China. If you want a concrete jungle, go to New York City. There's a beautiful mayor up there. You can go live with him. This is Florida. This is our state, and we must protect it. We have to do it. If you hire me to be the governor, I will block any AI data center that threatens our environment or jacks up our electric bills. Full stop, no exceptions. You do your little silly AI data thing somewhere else. You do it in California with Newscomb. Don't do it here. I'm going to remove every single developer off of the FWC and appoint good conservationists who will look out for our treasured land. We are called to protect our land in Genesis 2. That's not political, that's biblical, and I will heed that advice. I'll protect your Second Amendment right, not suggestion, not recommendation, Second Amendment right. But I'll also be a staunch defender of your First Amendment right. Just weeks ago, we learned that in Miami Beach, the freaking mayor, Steve Miner, charming fella, he sent armed men to confront an innocent woman for criticizing him and Israel in a Facebook post. Banging on the door, showing up. Can you, literally, it's on video. Can you explain what this post means? I would never incite violence and I would never call violence on anyone. This is merely a historical observation. If our founding fathers knew that an armed government official sent armed men to confront a woman over criticizing the government, they would have hanged him publicly. That's a historical observation. Yes, hatred of Jews is wrong. Hatred of Muslims is wrong. And the most despicable, ubiquitous, virulent form of hatred in this country against Christians is wrong, and it must end. Let me just be very clear on this issue, because I don't want to mince words on this. If you want to criticize Russia, be my guest. If you want to criticize Ukraine and that money laundering scheme, be my guest. And if you want to criticize Israel and call Benjamin Netanyahu a war criminal, be my guest. I'll defend your right to do that. Our founding fathers fought and died for our right to criticize this government. I'm pretty sure it applies to that government as well. And look, the woman, she served in the National Guard for 9 years. She's been a proud Miami Beach resident for 15 years. I called her on the phone the other day. And I told her, look, you're a Democrat, I'm a Republican. You and I have probably never voted for the same person ever. And you may not vote for me. But just know this. If I'm the next governor of my state, we will never enforce any law that punishes First Amendment protected speech, including that despicable anti-Semitism law that they signed in Israel. Done. Can't do it. You cannot do that. Why? They say, why does he talk about Israel so much? I'll stop talking about Israel when they stop meddling in our elections. How about that? How about that? We'll stop talking about Israel when you stop enforcing stupid laws that punish us for criticizing Israel. We'll stop talking about Israel when Netanyahu gives back the $385 million. We'll stop talking about Israel when students are threatened with expulsion for merely criticizing the Israeli Defense Forces at FSU. then we'll stop talking about Israel or any other country. I want to be clear. I don't hate any country. None of us hate any country. We just love this country, our country. We believe that Florida is our home. America is our birthright. And I'm running for governor to make sure that no one steals that from us. Thank you very much. I said earlier, I don't want your vote. I want you to hire me. So here comes the job interview. Ask away. I think if you're going to ask the people of our state, 23 million people over 67 counties, and yes, 7 counties, if you were going to ask them to hire you, you have to ask them to earn your trust. And I am here not to ask you to blindly trust me. I'm asking for the opportunity to earn your trust. Fire away. Yes, ma'am.
Will you sign the Moms for Liberty Parent Pledge?
I'll take a look at it right now. I'm going to bring it up. Oh, this is a good one. I pledge, I'm reciting it and then I'll pledge it. I just got to read it out loud, sir. I pledge to honor the fundamental rights of parents, including but not limited to the right to direct the education, medical care, moral upbringing of their children. I pledge to advance policies that strengthen parental involvement and decision-making, increase transparency, defend against government overreach, and secure parental rights at all levels of government. Absolutely, I pledge that. Absolutely.
I will arrange for it. I'm the legislative chair for Brevard.
Oh, that's me.
Sean Zerke.
Hey, Sean. Thank you so much.
Nice to meet you.
I'll sign it. Absolutely. Shouldn't be controversial to say this, that parents are in charge of their children, not the government. And yet, right now in Santa Rosa County, a 5-year-old girl was stolen, and that's the only word that can be used to describe the situation, was stolen from her mom, Joy, because Joy refused the misguided medical advice of an expert. Her daughter struggles with cystic fibrosis. And there's this new, fancy, experimental, you heard that before? Medication. And the mom said, no, what she's on right now is perfectly fine. We don't want to take the risk. We don't want to deal with the side effects. And then guess what happened? The Department of Children and Families, in quotes, of course, banged on her door with an armed police officer in Santa Rosa County and stole her daughter from her. I called Joy the other day and I said, this is an abomination. This is supposed to be a free state of Florida. This is about parental rights. And look, parental rights isn't just about what books are in the library. It's about the fundamental right that you, as a parent, are in control of your children. I will be with Joy at her court hearing on February 9th in the Panhandle of Florida, where once again, the Florida Department of Children and Families is trying to steal her daughter from her. We must protect parental rights here in Florida. This Wawa cup kills all the aura. I'm sorry. I should have like a little cappuccino thing, and it's cute, and but I just like Wawa. I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am.
I'm here representing the anti-abortion stance. I have a lot of pro-life friends, and so I just want to encourage you to continue to stand on that and ask you how you can take us from 6-week ban to a total ban on abortion, and how if you will hinder the IVF industry, which is trying to move into Florida and make a living, expand their industry. It's a horrible, evil thing that IVF is, not pro-life. Millions of embryos are killed, frozen, discarded. So I just wanted to ask you if you will change it from 6 weeks to a total ban, which we want.
Yes.
And to continue to stand on life.
And this young lady is from a group called Progressives Anti-Abortion Uprising. It's an incredible group. I've followed it for years. It just shows you conservatives, progressives, Republicans, and Democrats agree in this country that abortion is murder. There's this idea in Tallahassee that you can't say certain things if you're a Republican about abortion because you might lose votes or might lose a donor or an invite to a cocktail party. Let me not mince words. it would be the honor of a lifetime to sign a full abortion ban here in Florida. The honor of a lifetime. I do not, as a Catholic, as a Christian, I do not support IVF. I think IVF, treating children, discarding children that don't meet the specific, it's wrong. Genetically modified human beings are wrong. Genetically modifying human beings are wrong. I support life that begins at conception. Thank you for the incredible work your organization does.
Thank you, Mr. Fishback. I just have a question. Do you think that Donald Trump is America first? And why? If you think so, or I'm just curious. Good question.
It's a really good question. You have to separate Donald Trump from the Trump administration, Donald Trump from the Trump advisors, Donald Trump from Pam Bondi and whatever the heck Kristi Noem is, right? I'll be honest with you. I don't believe at this point in time that the average Trump administration official is America first. I believe that the Donald Trump of 2015 and 2016 is the genuine, real Donald Trump. I believe that he puts America first, but I believe there is, sadly, this push and pull behind the scenes. I don't pretend to know what's happening in the White House on any given day, but I know there are some very, very interesting people that are trying to pull him away from his instincts, which is to put this country first. But at the end of it, honestly, when the history books are written, historians will not separate between President Trump and the Trump administration. That will all be part of his legacy. And it's my hope that President Trump will reassert control at times over those parts of his administration that are pulling him away from the mandate that we all gave him last November.
I often hear you talk about H-1B visas. As a third-generation tile installer and small business owner in the state of Florida, I want to know if you'll keep the same energy towards H-2 visas that steal jobs from Floridian trade workers.
Yes, I will. And when I say H-1B, I'm really shorthand for the entire alphabet soup. Our economy has to work for our people. People will say, well, the GDP is so high right now. The GDP of Florida, by the way, is $1.85 trillion. You didn't know that, and neither did I, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't pay the bills. It doesn't help with your property tax bill at the end of the year. And it doesn't help if you're unemployed, struggling to find work. So yes, H-1B foreign workers, H-2B, H-2A, all of it has to go. And here's how you implement it. And get specific, because I think you can appreciate the detail here. Here's what you tell the companies. Why do companies hire cheap foreign labor? There's only one right answer. Why do they hire cheap foreign labor? Because it's cheap. Because it's profitable. That's all. Does anybody believe the Indian, and no offense to Indians, but does anybody believe the Indians are smarter than us? No. I know that Vivek thinks he's smarter than all of us combined. But no, they're not smarter than us. And the CEOs will tell you, well, you need the most qualified people for the job. And that's the excuse to bring in the third world. They need the most qualified people for the job. I agree. The most qualified people for the job are American citizens every single day of the week. That's what we can agree on. So how do you do it? Now, let me just start by saying Congressman Donalds at the University of Florida in November of last year said that we need to keep the H-1B program because, quote, our students are not economically viable yet. Byron Davos called, they want their handbook back. Who says that? Who says economically viable, by the way? Okay. Number one. Number two, yes, they are. The problem is that American companies won't hire them because they get away with using foreign immigration visas like H-2B, like H-2A, like H-1B to bring in cheap foreign labor. Here's a very simple solution. Any company in Florida that has an H-2A, H-1B, any type of foreign worker on the payroll, and they're paying them $40,000, and the prevailing wage for an American citizen here in Florida is $70,000. Guess what? It's a $30,000 fine for the company. Now you have a choice. Do you want to pay the 40 plus the 30 for the Indian, which is 70, or do you want to hire the qualified American who speaks English, who is from here, who knows this community and the state like the back of their hand for $70,000? If you reassert the market playing field between option A and option B, guess which one the companies will choose? The American workers. That's what we are going to do. We have to do it. Because if you don't have a job, you don't have an income. If you don't have an income, you're not buying a home. If you're not buying a home, you're probably not getting married. And if you're not getting married, you're not having kids. And if you're not having kids, ladies and gentlemen, what is the point? The affordability crisis is real. And you know how you start addressing the affordability crisis? There are a lot of young men in our state who have been sold the toxic lie that there's something wrong with them, that they're toxically masculine, that every sin in society is because of white Christian men. That is a disgusting lie, and it has to end. It's a disgusting lie. And so, yeah, we'll end that lie by changing up the curriculum in our public schools and giving those teachers who want to push that crap a nice little talking to. But we also have to reassert an economic system. I believe that almost all of the issues facing our country are downstream of a lack of economic sufficiency, a lack of your ability, your kids' ability, your grandkids' ability to get a great paying job. 70% of recent college grads in Florida are what are called underemployed. That means they studied science or math, but they're working a part-time job at a restaurant. That's called underemployed. They didn't do the whole feminism intersectionality major. They did what Republicans told them to do. They got the degree in STEM, and then they were told, no, that job is not for you. That's for a kid from Mumbai or Shanghai. You're from Brevard. You're a pesky American. You figure it out. And so good economics says to put the most qualified worker at the front of the line. That's what I will do as governor if you hire me. I'm going to go to her and then you, sir. Go ahead.
Hi.
Hi, ma'am.
Can you tell me what you plan to do as far as property taxes for citizens of Florida, especially senior citizens that are on a fixed income?
Thank you.
What your plans are?
Yes, thank you very much for that question. I didn't get to that. I was ranting about all sorts of Wawa and which way the Pacific Ocean was. I am not for property tax relief. I am not for property tax reform. I am for complete and total property tax elimination. There's a catch. Only for Florida residents. Only for Florida residents. So some hedge fund billionaire from New York who gives money to Soros, or maybe it even is Soros, has 3 acres on Melbourne Beach, $5 million home. What? Why does he deserve anything? He didn't build this state. He didn't contribute this state. He didn't work in this state. He didn't raise a family in this state. You don't rent your home from the government. You ought to own it free and clear. My goal is to do one thing and one thing only. Not to compromise, not to play games in Tallahassee, but to eliminate your property tax bill. That is how we deliver the largest tax cut in Florida history. Well, the obvious question then becomes, how do we pay for it? How do we pay to eliminate property taxes? Let's start with this undeniable statistical reality. In the last 5 years, statewide property tax revenue is up 76%. In the last 5 years, statewide property tax revenue is up 76%. That means the amount of money that all the local governments have collected in 5 years is up 76%. Ma'am, I hate to put you on the spot. May I just ask you a few questions? This wasn't rhetorical. You want to give her the mic? Okay, so 76% in 5 years. Let me ask you, are your roads 76% better? From what you can tell, are the schools 76% better? No. Is the lady at the DMV 76% nicer? No. Okay, so what gives? What gives? And no, and by the way, well, are you going to investigate it? No, I'm not going to investigate. I'm just going to cut them off. Why would we have to do the work? Why is it our job for them to spend 76% more money which is, by the way, $20 extra billion. That's money, by the way, that you guys could have used to send kids off to college, to go out to restaurants more often, to do what you want to do, to retire with dignity. And they stole it from you because they're treating you like a piggy bank. So are you going to, no, I'm not going to investigate it. I'm going to cut it off at the source and let them figure it out. Because guess what? There's this lie that's being peddled right now in the papers of our state, the Miami Herald, the Scum Sentinel, all of these big papers that are saying if you eliminate property taxes, all the schools will shut down, the roads, the police. Did we have roads and schools and police 5 years ago? Of course we did. So what gives? What happened with the 76% increase? That's number one. You pay for it by getting back to 2020 spending levels as opposed to using the scamdemic as an excuse to raise everybody's taxes. Number two is the number one asset in Florida is tourism. You guys have a beautiful port here. Charge the passengers more. Charge the people who come into Port Canaveral a little bit more, the millions of unique people who come to your port every single year, as the 100 million people who visit Broward, Dade, Palm Beach County every single year. Guess what? Charge them more. It's our state. They don't get to come to our state for free. Charge them a little bit more for visiting our state because we are overtaxed at the moment, and that is not fair. And so our number one asset is tourism. Make the tourist pay for the difference. And then number three is the wealthiest homes in Florida, Melbourne Beach, Palm Beach, Siesta Key, Boca Grande, Destin, Navarre. Who lives there? Out-of-staters. No property tax relief for them. I'm sorry, if you own an $80 million home in Palm Beach across from Mar-a-Lago, which apparently, according to some stupid judge in New York, is only worth 80 grand or something, I don't know. But if you own an $80 million home and you're a hedge fund Connecticut billionaire, does not matter. You're going to pay your full freight in property taxes. I'm not going to let my seniors have to scrap together money every single year to pay their property tax bill. It's not going to happen. It can't happen. Why would we let that happen? And they say, well, and some in my generation will hold a little bit of resent over that position. We'll say, well, what are you going to do for us? Do you realize that young people pay property tax bills as well? A home is kind of like a white elephant. I bought a home a couple years ago, and I can tell you, it's like you get a home, and by the grace of God, you get the money, you get the down payment, you get approved on the mortgage, and then you find out, oh, there's this thing called HOA. There's this thing called property insurance. There's this thing called property tax. And then it just becomes a piggy bank. You become the government's piggy bank. And you never truly own it. You never truly own it. And that's a really, really big problem. It's actually stopping a lot of young couples from buying their first home because they don't have the money to buy the home if they do, and then they have to pay all this money in a property tax bill. It's just not fair to our seniors as well. Crazy idea. If Florida is the best state in the country, then why are the people who made it the best state in the country struggling to afford to live here? It's a very simple question. Best state in the country, but if the people who made it the best feel like they can't afford to live here anymore, it means we got a lot of work to do. And if I'm running to do one thing and one thing only, that is to make your life more affordable. And look, there's no task that's too big or too small. Property tax is the biggest task that I'll have as governor in my first term, is to eliminate property taxes. That's a big one. But there's also some small things that we can do to deliver affordability. Ever heard of SunPass? You meet people, it seems like every week I meet someone who's spending $300, $400 to get stuck in traffic. We paid for those roads. Why do we have to pay to use them every single time we go on them? Not a Democrat thing, not a Republican thing. It's a Florida first thing. If you hire me to be your governor, I will eliminate all tolls for Florida residents. And to the perennial skeptic that stands on my shoulder, whispering in my ear, how will you pay for it? Charge the New Yorkers more. Guys, despite the tundra of the last couple of days, it's consistently 70 degrees in our state. When up there, it's 4 degrees, 5 degrees when it's warm. We have the best asset in the entire country. We have the best tourism, the best beaches, whether it's the Atlantic or, yes, the Gulf of America. We have the best tourism spot in the entire country. I'm a business guy, and guess what? When you have a good asset and you know you can charge more, you know what you do? You charge more so I can give you all a tax break. Yes, sir.
As a law enforcement officer, myself, my best friend, and then my other best friend over here, we're all in law enforcement in Orlando. My pay, like many public servants, have struggled to keep up with inflation while property taxes and tolls continue to raise our cost of living. You proposed eliminating homestead property taxes and tolls, which would directly help working families. How would your administration make that relief possible while still ensuring law enforcement agencies are fully funded and able to increase pay to keep up with inflation?
That's a great question. First off, thank you for being here and thank you for what you do. This is the dilemma. Property taxes pay for cops, first responders, public schools, and our roads. The answer is going to depend on the individual county. You're in Orange County. It's a tourism capital of Florida. You can raise a revenue tax for tourism in Orange County, and you can raise, as you should, and I will, the salaries of every single police officer in our state by 25%. We can do that. You know, I'm not going to be one of those Republicans who says, I'm never going to raise taxes. Why wouldn't we raise taxes via tourism when we have the best weather, the best theme parks, the best everything? If it means raising taxes on foreigners, on visitors from out of state to help raise pay for cops who are waking up every single day and putting their life on the line. And so, yeah, the money's there. We're eliminating one source, which is primary homesteaded residents, but we're also can create new sources of revenue. And I think a tourism tax, especially in Orange County, but also in Brevard, Osceola, Palm Beach, Broward, Dade, these tourism hotspots of our state, we can absolutely raise new forms of revenue to increase public sector pay, including and especially for our brave police officers. Thank you very much. And again, I'm a business guy. I'm not beholden to dogma. Someone tried to get me to sign some declaration, some pledge. I'm happy to sign the Moms for Liberty pledge, but someone tried to get me to sign some pledge the other day. I would never raise taxes. I'm going to raise taxes on Blackstone, guys, because I don't like the fact that they're buying up and hoarding single-family homes across our state. So yes, the only thing they seem to understand is their profit and losses. And so if I give them more losses via tax increases, they will then get out of our state so you and your kids and your grandkids can finally buy a home. I will do that. I will raise taxes on them. Why would I not raise taxes when we have the best tourism sector in the entire country? That's a good operating procedure to have. I think it's very simple and very straightforward to say, yes, we can raise tourism revenue and increase pay for public school teachers and our firefighters and our police officers. I will do it, and I will not apologize for it. Yes, sir.
How would you handle if every year, every January, me, an old guy that I am, I wait to see my paperwork come in on my house insurance? It goes up every year. So how would you handle the rising cost of house insurance premiums?
It's a great question. You know, the housing insurance market is completely screwed up. When we go, for the first time in a decade without a major storm, after them raising our premiums, telling us we're raising your premiums because there's going to be a major storm. And yet they didn't give us a refund, did they, for last hurricane season, despite the fact there was absolutely no storm and no damage to be had. The answer is actually really simple. It's regulation. Housing insurance market, property insurance market needs to be more tightly regulated to prevent them from just waking up one day and saying, you're in a flood zone, you owe us $800 extra. We're going to raise this by 15, 20%, and you have no recourse, you have no say. The longer term solution is going to be more competition. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you to wait 5 or 6 years while I work out to bring more competition to our state. What I can do immediately is to regulate and place a cap on homeowners insurance premiums going up as governor. I will do that in the meantime, in between time, while I work to bring more competition. If you're the only pizza place in Palm Bay, you can charge whatever the heck you want because you know that the nearest pizza parlor is 45 miles away and the customer can't do anything about it. Especially in the case of housing insurance where you don't have a say whether you buy the pizza, you have to buy the pizza no matter what. That's what makes housing insurance so problematic, is that you don't get a say in whether you buy it or not. And so it's a two-part solution. Number one is a cap. We need to freeze any increase in homeowners insurance while we work out bringing up more competition. You'll hear a lot of politicians on the left and the right say more competition, more competition, more competition. But in the meantime, while we work to facilitate that competition, I'm not going to let them screw you over. Thank you, sir.
I want to say, first of all, thank you for speaking with us tonight. The first thing I noticed when I came across you on Instagram is that you're Catholic, and I'm also Catholic. I grew up in a Catholic family. My parents, my sisters are all Catholic, but the issue is there's this divide about the issue of Israel. And as a Catholic, obviously, I love all humans for what they are because we're all created in the image and likeness of God. I do not believe we need to be sending, like you said, them millions of dollars. As a young man, how should I go about that? Not just in my family, but as I grow into an adult. And I think this is an important message for Gen Z in general.
It's a good question. I think there's a real debate to be had on Israel, a real debate to be had on AIPAC and Israeli influence in our politics. I also think there's a lot of really low IQ anti-Semitism on the internet. And you need to acknowledge both things, right? You know, I would give you the advice that I got as a high school debater and that I give to the students of Incubate Debate, which is, we know from the show Dragnet, just the facts. That's also my second childhood show. Just the facts. I think far too often we get warped up in rhetoric, the rhetoric of this and that and the other, as opposed to what are the facts about Israel's influence in American politics? What are the genuine facts about what happened, as you and I both know, to the Holy Family Catholic Church in Gaza City last summer that was bombed by the IDF? What are the facts about something that Republicans don't want to talk about, which is the USS Liberty? What are the facts? My advice on this issue would be my advice on any issue. Less rhetoric, more facts. Don't get too heated one way or the other. But I think if you can just deliver that to friends and family, and whether you're selling them on this particular issue or if you're walking away wanting to sell our campaign to others as well, it's stick to the facts of what we're trying to do. Everyone's trying to do the one-liners and the gotchas and the jokes, and it's really all cringe. If you have the facts on your side, you can never lose. Oh, sorry. Nice hat.
Thank you. So I was wondering what your opinion on the FLHSMV English only.
Oh. So this is interesting news that came out last week. Thank you for the question. What's your name? Anthony, thank you. So last week, I don't know why it took this long, but last week they announced that you cannot get a driver's license in Florida unless you pass the test in English. Weird concept. Do you think we could go to China and get a driver's license unless we spoke Chinese? Do you think we can go to India? I don't know why we would, but do you think we could go to India? I'm just going to be honest. I have no desire to ever go to India. I have no desire to ever go to India. If I wanted food poisoning, I'd leave out the Popeye's chicken overnight. I'm just telling you, I have no desire to, my mom's been, no desire to ever go there. Okay? So, if you went to India, they would not give you a driver's license unless you spoke, wrote, and read in Hindi. I applaud what Governor DeSantis did in mandating English as the only acceptable language for the driver's test. I'm going to take it a step further. I'll sign an executive order because that's exactly what you can do in this case with respect to the DMV. I'll sign an executive order before the sun sets on my first day in office to revoke the driver's license of anyone who did not pass the test in English. Get off the roads. Get off the roads. Think about it. How many times have we been in an Uber, we've been in a Lyft, and the person driving does not speak a word of English? That's what I mean when I say it's hard to be an American in America today. There are parts of our state, and I love them, I grew up down there. There are parts of our state where you walk into a McDonald's, you walk into a supermarket, and everyone is speaking Spanish, and you can't get someone to help you if you speak English. Growing up in South Florida, the sign used to read, "Se habla español," which says, we speak Spanish here. So if there was somebody who was visiting, or you had somebody in your family who didn't speak good enough English, they could go to that business and still have reliable service. Now in large parts of Miami, it should read, "We speak English," because that is somehow the aberration. That seems to be the exception to the rule. This is an English-speaking country. We pledge allegiance to one flag and one flag only, and that is the United States of America. Teddy Roosevelt, our 26th president, perhaps said it best. We have but one flag, the American flag, and we have but one language, the English language. I will enforce that every single day if you hire me as governor. And I want to touch, sir, on what you talked about earlier, which is homeowners insurance. And if I could pivot to auto insurance. Do you know why auto insurance sucks in Florida? We have some of the worst drivers in Florida. And some of the worst drivers in Florida, do you know what they all have in common? They don't speak a word of English. You want to talk about lowering your auto insurance? I'm spending more to insure the car than I am on the car itself every single month. Think about that. How does that make any sense? It costs more to insure than it does the actual car. You want to bring down auto insurance premiums? You have to make our highways safer. Do you know how you make our highways safer? You kick every single person by revoking their driver's license off of the roads unless they speak English. It's that simple. And no, it's not racist. It's called putting America first. The racist allegations, that don't work anymore. White guilt died in 2025. Racism died in 2024. We're done with it. We're not going to bend the knee, and we're not going to apologize or not pursue a common sense policy that is good, not just for the economics of your family. Bringing down auto insurance prices, of course, would be a relief for all of us. But I can't live with the fact that if you had me as your governor, there was somebody driving on our roads who made an illegal U-turn and took the life of one of your loved ones because they passed a driver's test without speaking a word of English. That is unacceptable. And again, before the sun sets on my first day, I'll revoke the driver's license of anyone in our state who did not pass that test in English. Take the bus, or better yet, go back to where you came from. We're full. Yes?
I guess to piggyback on the average Floridian can't afford, well, the average American doesn't even have $1,000 in their savings account. The average Floridian can't even go to Disney World with their family at all. So I hear you saying regulating the, raising the prices on tourism, making sure that if you're coming into Florida, you got to pay more. How would you realistically be able to regulate that, being that, I mean, if you come from New York and you go get a Florida driver's license, then you're Floridian, right?
Sure.
So, I mean, even piggybacking on that, you tell him that, you know, if you're over here, it's called competition.
Yeah.
So we're going to raise the price of the pizza. But who's he raising the price for the pizza for? Your people around here. So once again, now we're spending more money for the pizza. Granted, it's not a bad thing to do, obviously.
Depends on what the pizza is.
But if I'm paying more for the pizza now, and I already can afford my Disney tickets.
Yeah.
But we got to raise up the price because now, we're going to regulate who's from New York, who's from over here.
Sure.
If they have the ID over here, how are we going to...
It's a very good question, actually. I'm glad. I love the nitty-gritty, so thank you for asking that question. Allow me to get into the nitty-gritty, which is very simply the when you buy an airline ticket, when you fly into MCO, when you fly into Fort Lauderdale, my childhood airport, you break down the fees on that ticket. And you notice how they, sometimes on Priceline, it'll say what the ticket for Delta was, and then all the fees, the 50, 60 bucks. Those fees are paid for by people who come to our state. And so there's not a special cash register you go to if you're a New Yorker visiting or a Canadian snowbird. But when you fly into our state, guess who's mostly flying into our state? People from out of state. We're mainly just going to and from work, going to and from church, going to and from school. If you're flying in, if you're taking a cruise in, if you're staying at a hotel in Florida, in these tourist hotspots, we should absolutely increase the tax that those tourists pay so we can increase revenue, so we can give you and every single person here a tax break. I was at Disney before I got banned, but I was at Disney and I guess Walt Disney's rolling around in his grave, or in his case, his icebox. But you go to Disney, the people serving popcorn, they're from Thailand. The people doing the Dole Whip, the pineapple, it's actually very good. They're from the Philippines. The people selling park tickets are from Brazil or from Mexico. Why? Since when did we let foreign labor invade every single part of our tourism industry? You even go to a nice hotel like the Ritz-Carlton in Orlando. It's all foreign workers there. That used to be a young girl. That was her first job. That was her first paycheck. That was her ability to save up, to build something special and extraordinary. That's where she learned the cost of being late. That's where she learned how to pick herself up by the bootstraps. That's where she learned the promise and the importance of discipline and self-respect. And what we've done is we robbed that of an entire generation. I want to be very clear. Florida jobs are for Floridians. And if you're Disney, you're Marriott, you're the Ritz-Carlton, it doesn't matter. It's time for you to hire Florida workers again. You don't need to bring people from Thailand, Cambodia, the Philippines, and Brazil to sell popcorn at Epcot. You can hire good quality Florida workers to do that. And I think at the heart of this, by the way, is the issue of inflation. Is, to your point, it's not keeping up with inflation. Look, if all the prices in the economy doubled tomorrow, we would be pissed. But if all the prices doubled and our paychecks tripled, we'd be okay with that. At the crux of the affordability and inflation crisis is that prices have gone up, but our take-home pay has not gone up at all. It's not kept up the pace. And so how do you tell a young black girl or a young white boy, no, Disney's not hiring people like you pesky Americans. Disney only hires foreigners. And again, that's not just the pay stub, the direct deposit that kid is missing out on. They're missing out on valuable work experience. And the truth today is you can't get a job unless you've had a job. They won't hire you if you don't have experience. But where is a young boy from Brevard to get experience if everywhere he looks, including at the hallmark of our state, which is Walt Disney World, they will not hire people who look like him? I got to fix that, and I'm going to fix that.
Hey, James.
Hey.
Hey, so I had a question about redistricting. So California got into the news a couple months ago for redistricting so they could get rid of 3 Republican seats. Florida has the same opportunity to get 4 Republican seats in the Electoral College if we redistrict. Do you think it is beneficial as a Florida resident to get those redistricted?
It depends. It actually depends. What kind of Republicans? Genuinely. So there's this idea that we're going to vote our way out of this. We're going to vote our way out of the mess that we've been in now. Because I'll tell you, we used to live in paradise. You ever watch Home Alone? Yeah. That was literally paradise. I grew up in the 90s. I went to Blockbuster with my parents. We went to Baskin Robbins. My family raised me on a single income, even though I had 2 great God-fearing parents at home. In the 1960s, half of 30-year-old men were married and owned their home. Today, less than 15% are married and owned their home. My parents raised me on a single income. Their parents raised me on a single income. And I'll tell you, this used to be paradise. So if we're going to vote our way out of this, the question then becomes, which party is reliably going to help us go back to paradise? The paradise of being able to be married by 30, own a home by 30, have kids by 30, have a good, great paying job by 30. Which party is going to reliably help us? The Democrat Party wants a lot of people dead. That's just the truth. And you know that because the way they responded, and by they, I don't mean the average Democrat voter. I'm referring to the upper echelons of the party, the people, the talking heads, to Charlie Kirk's death. But I'm not letting the Republican Party off the hook at all. So to answer your question, I would support redistricting if those 3 seats went to good America First Republicans. If they went to America Last, feckless loser Republicans, I don't care what happens to those 3 seats. I'm just going to tell you the truth. And that's not going to win me any fans in the Republican Party. It's not going to win me any fans at the state GOP. But it's the absolute truth. To vote ourselves out of this mess, we need a campaign and we need a vision that will fight for every Floridian. Let me be very clear. I'm a Republican, if you can't tell yet. But I'm going to be a governor for every single Floridian. Whether you voted for Kamala Harris or Donald Trump, I'm going to fight for you with equal vigor. Why? Because there's not a property tax rate just for Democrats and a separate property tax rate for Republicans. There's not a SunPass rate for independents and then a separate SunPass rate for Democrats. There's not an affordability crisis that uniquely afflicts one party over the other. We are not a Democrat Florida or a Republican Florida. We are the free state of Florida. And the solution to the affordability crisis has to be one that helps everyone get ahead.
Well, I will say this. If you are going to, if you do become governor, which you probably will, and you're going to see the shift from the neocon Republicans of like the Bushes, the Shapiros, those guys, and they're going to switch to more like you, more Fuentes, more people coming in if you become governor, and they're going to identify as
Nick who?
Republican.
Careful, don't say his name in public. You'll get arrested. Look, people say, they kind of pull me aside and they say, you've already won. In 9 weeks, you've moved the Overton window of what's acceptable. I'm not in this race to move the Overton window. I'm in this race to save our state. I'm in this race to win on August 18th and to be the 47th governor of a state that my family has known for 4 generations. And fun fact, I would be, if elected, the 6th governor in my family. Not to glaze Sydney Sweeney, but I have great genes. I'm sorry, I'm following. You're going to have to, flag me down before, because I'm, playing, Where's Waldo?
So I'm a senior in high school, and this year I applied to colleges. And I have, pretty good stats for, an average student, a little bit above average. But it wasn't enough to get into, UF and FSU, because they take, New Jersey and New York people over Floridians, and I just want to know if you have anything you would want to do to change that.
Yes. And this is, again, another crazy concept. We as Florida taxpayers pay for and maintain Florida universities, and those same universities turn away students from Florida who have met all the qualifications to attend. So 2 things. Where do you really want to go to school?
Well, I chose out of state because I didn't want to go to FAU because my sister went there and my whole family went to UCF, and so I'm going to Ole Miss. But if it could have been, it probably would have been Florida if my stats were good.
Okay. So right now at the University of Florida, there are hundreds of foreign students from China. I don't know that in your particular case, there was a Chinese student and then there was you and then they chose. But the truth is, she didn't get to go to the University of Florida. And there are hundreds of foreign students from, among other countries, China, that now get to go to the University of Florida who were accepted this past admission cycle. How does that make any sense? So here's my solution. Don't need the legislature. It's called an executive order. It's called directing the state university system to do one thing and one thing only on my first day. And that is to raise the tuition on every foreign student to $1 million a year. When they can't pay, she's in. And then the obvious, I just want to get ahead of it because, you know, they're going to attack you and then they're going to attack me and they're going to say, well, but this Chinese kid, this Indian kid, he is so smart. Good. He can stay in his country and make it great. We're going to make America great again. And that starts with protecting our universities from foreign influence. I think we can do the same thing. I think we can do the same thing with out of state. I think it's the same thing. Look, the solution is always through price. How are you using an economic system to prioritize what you desire, price what you desire? And I think the same thing goes with out-of-state students. You can slightly increase tuition there, but I think the foreign students are absolutely the biggest threat because they come to our universities, they do not assimilate. I remember from college, these foreign kids, they would sit in their corner and they'd speak Korean. They wouldn't even invite me over for Korean food. And I was particularly appalled by that because I love Korean barbecue. But I digress. And, you know, in the 1960s or the 70s, the idea of a foreign exchange student was they would come and they were from Italy and they would teach you how to make pasta and you would teach them about federalism and you'd go to church together and you'd have a group exercise comparing the political systems of Milan and Washington, D.C. And now it's a bunch of snobby Chinese kids who are vaping in the corner and don't speak a word of English. $1 million, no negotiating. You need to wear a brick suit. You know the guy who goes to the Trump rallies wearing the brick suits? Of course.
I have another question.
Yeah.
James, Stefan Hartman here. I'm owner of Iron Direct Primary. It's a direct primary care practice. And the reason we do that is because it removes the red tape between the patients and ourselves. It removes insurance barriers. It also is very pleasant for the provider because we don't need to fight insurances to get money. Our practice wouldn't survive in the big system for a small practice. What I'm asking is, how can you, as a governor, help patients pay for the care that they desire to remove the red tape of insurance? Is there any incentive you can give, any way you can help patients?
Yes, there is, and there's just one example I came across the other day going to the dentist, and I asked, well, how much is it with the insurance? And they said, it'd be $470. And I said, well, just curious, how much is it without it? And they said, $390. And I said, wait, what? And this is not an aberration. This is not something that's random or unlikely. And I'm just a business guy, right? In any business, the more middlemen you have, the more expensive it's going to be for the consumer. In any situation, imagine for a second that if you wanted to buy a pizza, but to buy a pizza, you had to go through not Domino's, you couldn't go to Domino's directly, but you had to hire a pizza broker who would go on your behalf to go to Domino's and buy the pizza. And then he would have to hire somebody to deliver you the pizza. And then that person would hire someone to feed you the pizza. I like the idea of the last one, but the other two, if it's a female, the other two, just, it's what it is. I wouldn't want a man feeding me. I'm in a happy relationship. I'm just being honest with you. But we can talk the technicals, and I'd appreciate to spend some time with you to learn more about what you're doing, but it sounds like incredible work, is how do we remove the middlemen? How do we remove the regulation that protects them? Because guess what? Oftentimes, it's regulation that doesn't protect the patient. It protects the people in the middle who are trying to skim off a little bit, who add no value. If you ask somebody what they do, if you ask some of these healthcare brokerage, pharmacy benefit, if you ask them what they do, what is a pharmacy benefit manager? They'll sit there, you talk to them for 10 minutes, you have no idea what they do. Guess what? Get rid of them. If you're not the person putting the Band-Aid on, if you're not the person dealing out the prescription, then what are you doing? If you're not the nurse providing essential health care, then what are you doing standing between a woman and her physician, a woman and her healthcare provider? And so my instinct is to align with you 100%. to get rid of that red tape, I'd appreciate a conversation with you to understand how we can best do that at the state level. And I'll give you my number afterward.
All right, James. Over to you.
Again, as a law enforcement officer, me and my best friends, we're no better than anybody else, obviously. We're equal as anybody else here.
You're better than the criminals.
But one question I asked specifically was, where are you getting this 25% specifically? I'm not trying to sell ourselves short when it comes to law enforcement, fire department, EMS, teachers. But specifically, why 25% and why only that 25%? Why not 20%, 15%? Again, I'm not trying to sell ourselves short, but where are you getting this specific number from, and how can it benefit us?
That's a great question. So the 25% comes from the gap between the increase in inflation and the lack of increase in take-home pay across the median worker here in Florida. That's the gap over, say, the past 5 to 6 years, especially in the post-COVID world, where inflation skyrocketed and take-home pay didn't increase. I think at the very least, we have to get folks back to where they were at a minimum just 5 or 6 years ago. That's where the 25% comes from. How we're going to pay for it is we're going to increase revenue in areas where we have an absolute advantage to do so, which is in tourism. I think we have to raise tourism tax across the state. It's not a tax that anybody from Florida is going to pay. If you're a snowbird from Canada, you're going to pay it. If you're a New Yorker visiting for the weekend, you're going to pay it. And if you're one of those pesky Chinese tourists, you're absolutely going to pay it. And we can charge that amount of money because we are the most unique environment, climate in the entire country. And we should be able to charge people more for living and visiting in our, not for living, but for visiting in our state. And so it's just about how quickly we end up doing it. But that's my plan. I mean, look, you can't print money from thin air. I'm not Jerome Powell. I'm not the Fed. I'm not Greenspan. I can't just print money out of thin air. Quite literally, if you are going to give someone money, you have to take it from someone else. Not controversial, but true. If I am going to give you a tax cut, if I am going to eliminate your property taxes, and I don't even want to know how much you're paying, because I got to eat after this. And you do too. But if I'm going to eliminate your property taxes, where are we going to get the money from? I've got to do two things. I've got to cut the waste and the excessive spending at the county level, and it's excessive and it's disgusting. It is disgusting that our police officers are making, in some cases, 1/10 of what some bureaucrat in the Orange County Commission is making for pushing anti-white propaganda in a spreadsheet. It's disgusting. It's disgusting that some diversity officer in Brevard County Public Schools is going to make $400 grand. What a teacher would have to make over 10 years for pushing indoctrinating propaganda on our students in a comfy office chair. So I think you got to get rid of the waste, fraud, and abuse, number one. But we can't cut our way out of this. We actually have to raise new revenue. And I'm the only person who's actually talking about that, and I have a detailed plan to do that. Let me just say on one particular point, this little fraud, and it's not little at all, but this fraud out of Minneapolis, have you heard of it? This daycare fraud? It was not discovered by the FBI. Kash Patel is busy with his girlfriend. Okay? It was not discovered by the government. Call me crazy, but I don't believe a corrupt government can investigate a corrupt government. I don't trust Tim Walz to get to the bottom of anything when he's got tampons in the men's room. So why would Tim Walz, and by the way, he was in on it. Okay, Tim Walz was definitely in on it. How would Tim Walz get to the bottom of the Minneapolis scam? How? So here's my solution. By the way, who discovered the greatest daycare fraud in American history? Careful when you say Nick. Nick Shirley. Nick Shirley discovered it. I don't believe the government can investigate the government for fraud. Here's my solution. Remember the show Dog the Bounty Hunter? What a great show. I'm just naming all my childhood shows. I liked Cops. I think that was a great one. It's called, not Dog the Bounty Hunter. It's called Doge the Bounty Hunter. If you, as a police officer, know that your department or your county just wasted $10 million on crap, on excessive fraudulent spending, I'm going to institute a statewide Doge bounty that pays anyone in Florida 5% of the fraud they discover. You find $10 million of fraud, you are getting $500,000. All the fraud will be gone in 2 years. All of it will be gone in 2 years. You discover the fraud at that Haitian daycare down in Brevard County, 5%. You discover that food stamp fraud down in Orange County, 5%. And if you discover what Byron Donalds and Erica Donalds did with the millions of dollars in their charter school in Lee County, you're going to get 5% as well. And I'll personally sign that check because we want answers, Erica. We want answers, Byron.
I just wanted to hear, what are your thoughts on the killings of American citizens done by like ICE agents?
Yeah.
And how could we better, like, how could they better handle that? And if you would be okay seeing that in Florida, or how should they handle that instead of escalating the situation to de-escalate the situation?
So I think there's just an objective fact here. There are 2 American citizens who are dead in Minneapolis. Objectively, that is the truth. One of them tried to run over an ICE agent. And let's just get real for a second. If Renee Good, and may she rest in peace, genuinely, no American citizen should die on our streets. But if Renee Good had been successful and killed that ICE agent, they would have been cheering in the streets. That is the truth. So let's just do the counterfactual for a second. If she had been successful, they would have been jubilant. The second situation is a little bit more complicated, if we're going to be honest. We had 2 sets of information. Alex Preddy, we saw the video, got into a little bit of an altercation with ICE and Border Patrol. That is, protesting against ICE is protected by the First Amendment. Showing up to a protest with a firearm is protected by the Second Amendment. And so I don't like this new discourse from people like Scott Bess, and I have a lot of respect for him, but he says, what was Alex Preddy doing at a protest with a gun? First Amendment, Second Amendment, end of story. But we have to acknowledge the reality that when he was shot and killed, he did not have the firearm on him. It's just what it is. Now we find this video from a couple days ago where Alex Preddy is kicking a nice vehicle, assaulting officers, spitting on them. That's disgusting. And what the ICE agents have had to put up with in places like Minneapolis and New York City is disgraceful. That would never happen in Florida, because in Florida, our state law enforcement will always cooperate with our federal law enforcement every single step of the way. Tim Walz started this mess. Jacob Fry started this mess when he said, we will refuse to cooperate with the federal government. If you hire me as governor, we will work with our patriots and ICE and Border Patrol every single day, but we will also respect the First and Second Amendment rights of American citizens. Let me tell you how we get rid of every single illegal alien in this country without lifting a finger. And I'm studying it very closely because we can actually do it at the state level without having to get Washington, D.C. involved. Because as much good as President Trump is doing, I think D.C. is an absolute mess. You got the do-nothing Republicans, you got the know-nothing Democrats, and all they do is whine. The Republicans go on Fox News, they put out a strongly worded letter, but I haven't seen a single judge impeached in a year. I haven't seen Dr. Fauci arrested for pushing that experimental vaccine and killing millions of people. But here's my solution. And I'm studying it if we can actually do it at the state level. Here's how you get rid of every single illegal alien in Florida, literally overnight. Remember how they debanked the January 6ers who walked in there and peacefully protested for about 20 minutes? You tell every illegal alien that we have frozen their assets. We froze their assets. Every single asset has been frozen. And it will remain frozen unless you go back to your country of origin within 30 days. That would work. And by the way, I don't want to have to deploy state law enforcement if we don't have to. We got a lot of stuff we need to be worried about here in Florida as well. But I think if you stare down the fact that we've got a lot of people, 1.4 million to be exact, in our state, who do not have legal status. They are taking jobs, homes, resources, taxpayer benefits, and it's not personal, except it is. It's personal for us. It's personal for the American citizens. They say, where's the compassionate for the illegal immigrant who's been here for 10 years? And to that we say, where's the compassion for Laken Riley? Where's the compassion for Jocelyn Nagari or for Rachel Marin? Where is the compassion for the American citizens who have been dispossessed of their jobs, of their income, of their benefits, and of their birthright? For people who broke into our country on Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's watch. I don't hate anyone. In many respects, I respect a lot of the people who have thought they could come here and make a better life for themselves, only to be gaslit by Joe Biden and told the way to get ahead is to steal. The brave thing for them to do is to stay where God put them and to make their countries great, not come here and steal from us. So I'm going to study that. And if we can do it, and you know some stupid judge who wasn't even born in this country is going to try to stop us. They try. President Trump is trying to get the Haitians out who have been here the temporary protected status. You have to know with Washington, D.C., there's nothing more permanent than anything called temporary in Washington, D.C. The Haitians have been here since January of 2010 because of an earthquake that, yes, was devastating. But you know what's also devastating? A lot of people in our state who do not follow the law, who do not speak the language, and take government benefits from the productive citizens. We need to start impeaching these judges who are breaking the law and disobeying the Constitution. Has to happen. And look, I don't want to get myself into any trouble more than I already have. But let me be very clear. If you refuse to obey an unconstitutional order from a judge, if I, as governor, refuse to obey an unconstitutional order from a judge, that could never be unconstitutional. A man who saves his nation breaks no law. It's the truth. Our founding fathers knew that.
I appreciate you taking time to come out and speak with us.
My pleasure.
So you've made a lot of promises today. Let's just talk about, teacher pay raised to 20%, no property taxes, no red flag laws, no wait times, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
The first question that was asked was about President Trump being America first.
Yeah.
And if I'm being honest, nothing against you, I thought that was a cowardly answer.
Sure.
Now, as the leader of Florida, just like Trump is responsible for his administration, Bush is responsible for the failures in Iraq and Afghanistan. You mentioned 3 things that you would ask a high school student. Out of the 3 things that you promised here today, by the end of your 4-year term or your 8-year term, what are 3 things that we can hang around your neck?
I like this.
So we can look at you and say this is a failure or a success.
I like that a lot. I like that a lot. It's probably more than 3, but let me give you the most important if I can. Do not vote for me for re-election. Run the tape, play this ad, shove it in my face. Do not vote for me for re-election unless I personally make your life more affordable in Florida. Full stop. I do not deserve to be re-elected in 4 years' time if I have not tackled the #1 issue in our state, which is that incomes have not kept up with inflation, that we are being overtaxed, whether it's property tax, whether it's effectively the tax from the private sector of homeowners insurance, of HOA fees, whether it's SunPass or whatever. Do not vote for me for re-election unless I personally make your life more affordable. As to your question about a lot of promises, trying to think what I did. No. Like bench warrant did. So I think the choice is between one or the other. And I don't mean political candidates, I mean just different philosophies. I'm going to be bold and I'm going to be aspirational. I'm going to shoot for the moon, but I'm not going to sit here and say, well, we fell amongst the stars and so you should be happy and be complacent. The alternative, and not in this race, but generally in politics, is I'm going to promise you a little bit and backstab you a lot. That's what Republicans have done for a very, very long time. Donald Trump was the first Republican who actually came out and had a real affirmative vision that wasn't just criticizing the Democrat Party. I'm honestly sick of Republicans who just sit there and say everything is the Democrats' fault. Why don't they do something about it? Why don't they actually put forward a plan that can make our life easier? I think one thing that Republicans refuse to acknowledge is the fact that the great replacement of Americans is real. The open border that was fueled by Republicans and Democrats is real. And for me, I'm going to have very, very high standards for my administration and for my state. And I'll wake up every single day working to deliver them. And if I don't meet the mark, I think the #1 mark is going to be making your life more affordable. I'm telling you right now, don't vote for me for re-election.
I mean, I'll be honest. You're talking like a politician. You didn't give us three, data-driven things that we can count on by the end of the day. Property tax is gone. That is binary, zeros and ones. Talking about President Trump, talking about the Democrats, that's just talk. We've talked for the last 4 years. Frankly, we've talked for the last 20-something years. Since I've been eligible to vote, not one politician has stepped forward. And I believe in you. I believe in your message and the things that you're standing for. But as an American, I want something that I can hang around your neck and say, he said he would do that, and he did it. Or he said he would do that, and he didn't do it. Because that's what we're seeing now, not only in Florida, we're seeing the federal government and across the country. People that are making promises and not delivering. And by the end of that 4-year term, that 8-year term, the goalposts are right here, and now they're right here.
I agree with you.
Every day, we've seen it in the last year that the president has been in the administration. And I say that as a 3-time Trump voter. And I would love to vote for you, but if you can't make substantial changes and deliver on any promises, then what are we doing here except hanging out at our local watering hole?
I think you bring up a great point. I think you do. Let me tell you this. I will get you those 3 things. You're putting me on the spot, and I appreciate that.
I'll accept that.
And I don't know what they are right now. I can think of 20 things, but I want to nail it down to 3. Your instinct is right that we've been betrayed by a lot of people. I'm not going to sit here and criticize the President of the United States while he still has 3 years to go. I'm just not going to do that. I'm not going to sit here and say that President Trump has been a failure when he still has the ability to turn around large parts of this administration. And in large part, I think the greatest thing he gave us was in the first 24 hours of him taking office was he completely shut down the southern border. Remember, Joe Biden and Jim Lankford in the Senate, they wanted us to sign a border deal where we accepted 5,000 migrants every single day into perpetuity. And Trump just shut down the border. And so I think if you actually look back, I know there's a lot of people who are skeptical, and I'm in that camp too, about how this administration is going. I think the last 3 months have gone horribly. But I think the first 3 months were really, really good. And if you give me a little bit of time, I'll come up with those 3 and I'll post them online, all right? And I want you to hang, I seriously do. And you know what I'll do? I'll tell you this right now. I won't even give you the chance for vote for me. If I don't do those 3 things that I put up, I will not I will not run for re-election. Let's do that. It's called a handshake. I won't even waste your time. I will not even waste your time. You know, if I'm going to be honest, I feel like the next guy after the girl who gets cheated on 3 times in a row. Right? I have the weight of all of the abusive, cheating exes on my shoulder. But I'm not going to sit here and complain about that and say, you know, this is not fair, this is victimhood or whatever. Americans have been cheated. We've been lied to, we've been gaslit. And I'm not going to sit here, honestly, and blindly convince people to vote for me. My hope today is that we can start a conversation that by Election Day, you have the confidence to vote for our campaign. Election Day, of course, being August 18th, because the next governor of Florida is going to be a Republican. Full stop. The question is, what kind of Republican is that going to be? Is that going to be Congressman Donald's vision for the Republican Party or our vision? But I respect the pushback. And if you give me a couple of days, I'll come up with those 3 things. And what I'll also do is I'll make it legal. I'm going to sign a legal affidavit that says that if I'm serious as a heart attack caused by the COVID vaccine. I am serious as a heart attack. You've given me the best ideas come from the detractors. Okay? I will sign something that says if I don't do those 3 things, a legal affidavit under penalty of perjury, that I will not run for re-election in 2030. You have my word.
Good evening, Mr. Fishback.
Hey.
I'm a Turning Point chapter president, and my dad is part of the Artemis program. I am curious to know what your plan is to support continued growth of the commercial space industry on the Space Coast of Florida.
What happened to that launch that got pushed back? I think it's scheduled for early March. I look forward to being out there for that. Space is one of those things it's just part of our identity in Florida. And we've got to do even more to support it. So there's 3 things I do. Speaking of 3, sorry. There's 3 things these aren't the 3 to hold me to. There's 3 things I would do. So the first is, and this is not a legislative thing. This is I have to negotiate with Mr. Musk thing. Every single SpaceX launch should happen here on the Space Coast. Every single SpaceX launch should happen right here in Florida. That's the first thing we have to do. And that's a businessman in me negotiating with a businessman in Elon Musk. That's the first thing. The second thing we have to do is we have to, and this is a connection to space, but space is the industry here in Brevard. It's going to support local restaurants, hotels, all of that. How do we turn what was the culture during the space shuttle launches, where everybody would drive here, everybody would hang out, the restaurants would see record business. You go to Cocoa Beach and all the hotels would be packed. And that was good for local business owners. That was good for local workers. It was good for waitresses. How do we get back to that? Again, it's not necessarily a legislative thing. It is a leadership thing. My commitment is, as governor, I will be at every single one of our space launches, every single one of them, to set an example that we have to support our space industry here in Florida. And the third thing, it's kind of unconventional, but hear me out, is we need to make more films in Florida. Georgia is just making all the movies these days. We've got Kennedy Space Center. We've got the SpaceX facilities. To even go further out, we've got the Everglades, all of that. You want to support space in Florida. It's about aesthetics and culture. Space in Florida needs to be front and center in the motion picture industry. That's how we redominate what it once was. And if you look at all those space movies from the 20th century, they were filmed here in Florida. And that brought attention, that brought eyes. And so I think you got to bring eyeballs and attention and energy before you can do all the other stuff. But 3 things is SpaceX launches exclusively happening in Florida. Number 2, revitalizing the space tourism industry, not just Kennedy Space Center, but the launches, all the traffic, all the business, all the restaurants, all the hotels, seeing that increase in demand because of our launches, which is a natural derivative of 1. And then a natural derivative of 1 and 2 is seeing more and more of Florida and the Space Coast on the silver screen. Thank you. I think it sells itself. When you see us more in movies, you see more investment, you see more that's happening here in the state. Come to think of it, those can be my three. I will sign an affidavit right now that those are going to be a lot easier than that.
I'm Mr. Fishback.
Hey.
It's a pleasure to be here with you. I ask a hard-hitting question, but I ask it in good faith.
Please.
Controversial topic that I was curious on. So I wrote down.
By the way, no topic is controversial. Nothing is off limits. There are no scripted questions. You need a governor that you can see and you can talk to personally. And if that's me, it's me. If it's Congressman Donalds, it's him.
Thank you. So Israel is our only democratic ally in the Middle East, a region that holds roughly half of the world's oil reserves, and it serves as a critical strategic buffer between the U.S. and Iran, as most recently demonstrated in the 2024 Grim Reaper operation. I like that you specified that our ties in Florida are through bonds, not just foreign aid, but you've argued that these funds should be redirected to down payment assistance for young married couples, an idea I've heard in similar tones from Kamala Harris.
Really?
So, just the down payment assistance, not for the Israel money, but...
So that was the coconut that hit my head, I guess.
She wrote on something similar with the down payment assistance. So
After a couple glasses of wine for her.
Yeah, I know. My question is, while reducing investment in foreign allies and redirecting funds towards domestic programs might be politically appealing, is it actually the wisest economic and strategic choice? And why should down payment assistance be contingent on scaling back foreign partnerships?
A lot of great questions there. Let me just say, so down payment assistance should not be contingent on scaling back foreign partnerships. I think we should do that independent. If every single person in Florida owned a home, every single married couple was living in a 3-bed, 2-bath, and we were still sending $385 million to Israel, I would bring it back, just full stop. That's the first thing. I don't think it's contingent on that. The second thing is I believe down payment assistance is necessary for the very simple reason of what is the alternative? We can give $10,000 to young married couples today to buy a home, or we can pay $10,000 to each of those people to stay single and live on welfare and food stamps and WIC for the next 10 years. I view it as an investment because if we give you that down payment assistance, it means you're young, it means you're married, it means one of two of you are working, which means you're not likely to depend on taxpayer-funded welfare. And so by giving you that, we are detaching you from the welfare system. And so when you say, how can we, not you, but when folks say, how can we afford to do that? How can we afford to keep paying people not to work? How can we afford to take assets from productive Floridians and give to people who in many cases are not productive, for just lack of a better word? And so that's the second part of it, is I think down payment assistance is a great way to get people and to incentivize and to recognize good behavior. Look, if you're a single mom and you have 2 kids, you're going to get more in welfare than if you're a married mom with 2 kids. So guess what message does that send? Stay single, stay divorced, or get divorced, okay? Literally, what economic incentive is there? Economic incentive to be married before the age of 30. Not a single one. So we wonder why home ownership is at an all-time low. Marriage rates have cratered. Young people, young men are being drawn to lust on the internet. And young women, in many respects, because of platforms like OnlyFans, feel objectified and commodified.
I will say we are a Christian and married and homeowners as well, so we like that part of you that is against all the degeneracy and, for the homeownership. So no kids yet, but hopefully soon.
We're praying for you. And I think the goal of the economic system is, does the economic system serve us or do we serve it? Right? So if I told you, hey, we have $1.85 trillion of GDP, but only 15% of our 30-year-old men are married and own their home. So what? If I told you we've got homeless vets sleeping under a park bench in Orlando or downtown Jacksonville, but we have $1.8 trillion of GDP, so what? I was asked, well, how am I going to measure the success of the administration? I'm going to measure the success of the administration not by GDP, not by random economic statistics, but by how well people in Florida are actually doing. And I don't mean well as in vibes. I mean, can you afford your property tax bill? Ideally, not ideally, ultimately, there is no property tax bill. Bring down HOA, bring down property insurance, raise the pay for existing jobs, create thousands of great paying jobs in the private sector. That's how I think that we put the state back on the map. And it's going to require someone who's going to go in there and be a little bit unconventional. And I hope you'll consider me for that job. Thank you.
Mr. Fishback.
Yes, sir.
First of all, I'm a big fan. I agree with 99% of your policies. I'm an Eastern Orthodox Christian. I've had the displeasure of having family live in Armenia, Greece, Egypt. And, Muslims have been persecuting Christians for the last 1,400 years. And they figured out a new jihad strategy of basically moving to the West and establishing colonies. Like we see in Dearborn, Michigan. In Texas, they're talking about building entire cities for Muslims using white Christian tax dollars. And in Florida, they've probably, in the last 20 years or so, they've built 300 mosques in southwest Florida. Why don't we give them the same treatment that they give Christians in Muslim-majority countries without the violence, but maybe put a jizya tax on all their mosques so we can preserve, the Christian ethics of this country?
So that would be unconstitutional. It would be unconstitutional. So I think we're all against Sharia law, right? Sharia law has no place in Florida. Two things can be true. Our founders were Christians who founded our country on Christianity. That is the truth. We are also a country that protects the religious freedom of every single American citizen. And I will do that not just as an American, but as a Christian. My hope, my life verse is Luke 6:46, why do you call me Lord, Lord, and not do as I say? My Catholic Mass often ends with, the Mass is ended, now go in peace to love and serve the Lord. For me, loving and serving the Lord is evangelizing on behalf of my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. That's my job. That's not something I can necessarily legislate at the state level. What I will do, unequivocally, is I will be an unapologetic Christian governor. I have to do that. I have to do that. And so, if you want to talk about the assault on Christianity, start with ACLU v. Allegheny, where the stupid Supreme Court disastrously decided that the nativity scene, the birth of our Lord and Savior in Bethlehem, is, quote, unconstitutional. That was decided in 1982.